Please, those of you coming to the class now, can you mute? Haba.
I think they...
No, mute. I don't think so. Yeah, continue.
It's like the admin. The admin is not yet.
In fact, most of them have to for one gist.
All right, so hello. All right.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Good. All right, good. So we can now go ahead. Your question, like I was saying, is not directly linked to environmental impact assessment per se, but you are talking about the legal instrument that is linked to relocation in case the project needs to relocate people within a community or from a community to another location. So yes, the EIA's responsibility is to point to the fact that there's a need for relocation. So it's a different ballgame entirely when you are now talking about the relocation process itself, all the legal instruments and all that. That is not part of EIA. Okay, so please let's try to delineate or differentiate between the process of EIA and then the legal process for relocation or movement of communities, the result of citing of projects. Okay, so having that at the back of our mind, I think we can now go ahead and start the afternoon class. This one talks about the process of assessment of environmental and social impacts and risks. So how do we determine environmental impact? How do we determine social impacts? And then how do we determine the risks that come as a result of the impact that affect both the environment and then the social fabric? So that is the fifth topic we shall be treating, all right, for the others. So by way of definition, first of all, I have to understand what environmental and social risks and impacts are. Okay, so environmental and social risk is actually a combination of the certainty or uncertainty, that's probability of certain hazard occurrences. Okay, and then the severity of the impacts that result from this occurrence. So it's a combination of probability of occurrence of hazards, and then how severe are these hazards when the occurrences happen. All right. So environmental and social impacts, on the other hand, is any change that can either be latent, that is potential, or actually happening, that's already kicked into existence. So in essence, we are talking of either the latent or the genetic aspect of environmental and social change. Okay, this is affecting both the physical, natural, or cultural environment. And then it also affects the surrounding community, the people that work around there, right? This results from the project activity that is supposed to be carried out. So it's all encompassing, both affecting both the environment, the culture, right, as well as the human beings that are associated with the project. So risk is a probability, and then impact is change that can either be latent or actual. Now, examples of environmental and social assessment risks and impacts. Okay, we'll look at them one by one. And then environmental and social risks and impacts, these are related to the projects that are being carried out. Since we're looking at developmental projects. So this includes those that have been identified by the World Bank's environmental health guidelines, those that are related to community safety, and those that are related to climate change, and then other transboundary or global risks and impacts. Then it also includes any material threat that affects protection, that affects conservation, maintenance, and restoration of natural habitats and biodiversity. So if there's any threat that tends to jeopardize biodiversity, any threat that tends to alter or destroy the restoration of natural habitats, that is an environmental risk and with associated impact, as the case may be. Then those related to ecosystem services and the use of living natural resources, such as fisheries and forests. Right? Those are also environmental risks and impacts. Then social risks and impacts. This one are threats to human security, right? Through escalation of personal, communal, or interstate conflict. It also has to do with escalation of crime or violence. Okay. There are also risks that emanate from projects of on individuals or groups, okay, who may be disadvantaged or vulnerable to the activity being carried out. And it also includes any discrimination towards individuals, okay, or groups in the process of providing access to development, resources, and project benefits. Those are examples of social risks. All right. Then we have, I think there's, okay. All right. Sorry, as I'm also multitasking and trying to look at the comments as they come in. So if there's anyone that has to do with that needs a necessary action, I would instruct that I would take care of it immediately. So fourthly, social risk and impacts also deal with negative or include negative economic and social impacts that are relating to involuntary taking of land or restrictions on land use. There are also impacts or the impact the health, impact safety, impact well-being of workers and the project affected communities. And then they are all encompassing as it relates to risk to cultural heritage. Okay. So competing claims on natural resources. So if, for instance, anything that has to do with threats, okay, to it has negative impact on social economics and all that, okay? The involuntary taking of land or restrictions on land use can affect a whole lot of people. Now, when there is competing claim on natural resources, this kind of scenario plays out, okay? The natural resource in question is available on a community's piece of land. But now, because of necessity, that is a necessity by the state or the country or the nation, the land in question is now taken away from the community. And therefore, they will lose their means of livelihood and they are asked to relocate to other areas. Okay? Then, that's if we look at the threats to security, and then the example of competing claims on natural resources also comes in. Now, people are secure when they have livelihood, but with the taking away of livelihood, insecurity comes in. Now, what do I mean by this? Take, for instance, the River Benue, all right? On River Benue, you have fishermen, you have those that mine sand and gravel, We also have those that use the river as their means of livelihood by providing boats that transport people from one location to the other. Now, these are all competing claims on the same natural resource, and that natural resource is river Benue. Now, conflict may arise because the activity of the sand miner is affecting the activity of the fisherman. Okay, so if a community is predominantly fishermen, another community is predominantly sand miners, the two cannot work together because one activity is affecting the activity of the other person. So there is always conflict, as we can see. Okay, so moving ahead, the environmental and social assessment, this needs to be proportionate to the risks and impacts of the project, right? And it should be based on the project's nature and scale. So if you're going to carry out both the environmental and social assessment, all right, you have to consider the level of risk, the level of impact of the project. So that is to say there's a scale. Project has a scale. It's either going to be high impact, low impact. We'll soon see how the World Bank rates projects in terms of impact. And this is very important because it determines the management or mitigation measures that can be put in place when the assessment is done. Okay, so why do we need to conduct the EIA? I think we're trying to repeat mostly what we have repeated before, but just to bring it back to mind. Okay, the idea of EIA is that it provides a tool for the World Bank and its clients, all right, so that they can make good decisions. It also provides a base so that the bank or its clients, as well as other supervising agencies, can supervise the environmental aspects of project implementation. So with EIA, we'll be able to know, okay, what is expected as an impact, what is expected as a mitigation. So in supervising now, you are going to look at, okay, is the impact present? Are the mitigation measures being implemented? So that is the idea behind the carrying out of an EIA, and we are looking at the World Bank and its supporting role for provision of funds for projects. The environmental and social impact assessment also identifies ways that projects can be improved, okay, environmentally, and also minimize, mitigate, and compensate adverse impacts. Okay, so that exactly what we have been saying from beginning to this point. Once you know the impact, you know the mitigating measure. The mitigating measure can have alternatives. So both, if we cannot mitigate comprehensively, you can compensate to make amends for the adverse impacts that occur as a result of the project. So you can either minimize, mitigate, or compensate. That should be part of the assessment to be carried out and documented as well. So EIAs also ensure that the options of development are environmentally sound, right? So that all negative impacts are initially identified, right? And they are taken into account in designing the project. So you first of all, okay, know the options for development, and then these options, you look out for environmentally sound options so that any negative impact of even the environmentally sound options are identified early enough before the project can start. So it's now catered for, taking into consideration the design of the project. Then once you have EIA, you'll be able to provide a formal mechanism so that there will be interagency coordination that addresses the concerns of the address groups and even NGOs that are interested in the matter. So we've been talking about, a lot of comments have been coming about how do you handle an organization institution or company that has come up without EIA and all that. And then I've also tried to explain that there is supervisory or regulatory governance related issues. So there are agencies of government that are meant to regulate some of these activities. Okay, so but without the EIA, there will be no formal mechanism for probably the government agencies to interface with donor agencies and even affected communities and NGOs. So, somebody asked a question and I said that first, we don't just base our talk on suspicion. So what you need to do is first of all, go and find out if the company in question is supposed to have an EIA, okay? And then you search for it. If it doesn't exist, then you approach the regulatory agency, something like that. So this EIA is the backbone for interagency coordination to address every concern that can be raised by individual groups and even NGOs. Lastly, EIAs are used to build environmental capacity within the country. Okay, so once we have an EIA, yes, of course, we'll be able to have an assessment of the impact and then mitigation measures. With these impact and mitigation measures, our environmental capacity can be enhanced. Now, I mentioned the idea of carrying capacity. So if we do an EIA, for instance, we have an industrial layout, we will be able to know the number of factories or the number of companies that can be located in that area. So once we're able to get the numbers, we are able to quantify how many are there, then we have effectively built our environmental capacity so that we'll be able to put down companies or industries that will not generally constitute harm to the environment. So on the idea of assessing environmental and social impacts continuing, okay, we know that human well-being is also connected closely to environmental sustainability. So, and this is the reason why poverty and environmental degradation are closely related. So, in situations where there is poverty, the citizens or the members in the community will rely heavily on natural resources that are free in order to survive. And that means that they will now extract materials from the environment, all right, in a kind of survival of the fittest or do or die manner. Okay, so take for instance, if the cost of cooking fuel or cooking like kerosene is now high, gas is also high and all that. Now people will resort to firewood, and that means extraction of wood from the environment, which equals or directly equals deforestation, if we put it that way. Okay. And secondly, assessment of environmental and social impact is justified because it demonstrates success, okay, that justifies funds received and to solicit further funding. So once you are able to carry out an assessment of both environmental and social impacts, right, you'll be able to demonstrate that, yes, you have been successful because every impact has a mitigation strategy. And the mitigation strategy, once done, has its own measurement metrics, okay, or milestones that will show. So once you keep the records, you will be able to defend yourself and then even ask for further funding, which will now help to improve the environment further. All right. So we also carry them out so that we can understand the impact on local communities. All right. So this will now help us to improve on the effectiveness of intervention. So if, for instance, we are carrying out a project And then there is impact on the health of the people. Then we have a mitigation strategy, all right, that says that, okay, yes, we are outputting carbon dioxide into the environment, all right, but be that as it may, all right, we are also now trying to mitigate the effect of this carbon dioxide output by providing people with uh, masks that tend to filter the carbon dioxide so that they don't inhale carbon dioxide directly. So we will now be able to look at, okay, has this improved the health of the people? So we will begin to look for what are the ailments that are related to carbon dioxide poisoning. So if there is a drop or there is no record of such ailments at all within the community, then we know that yes, there's effectiveness in the intervention. All right. So this now makes the project proponents or those that have proposed the project or those that are carrying out the project, they are accountable to the people. They are accountable to those in the community. They are accountable to stakeholders, that is, including the regulatory agencies as well as community members. All right. Now, we also do this because we will use the impact assessment findings to advocate for changes in behavior, attitudes, policy, and legislation at all levels. Okay. Now, this brings us to a point. Recall in our last lecture, I was hammering on a lot of issues that are behavioral. So it's now tending to show us that probably we may need to have a kind of would I say, or social type of EIA. Okay, I don't know how we can call it, but it's related to behavior, so that we can look at our behavioral impact assessment. So once we can have our behavioral impact assessment, then we can also have the mitigation measures that can address the behaviors that we put out that is affecting the execution of environmental impact assessment. So it's a new, or would I say it's an open field of study that can be carried out by social scientists, so that as we are doing EIA, they are also doing BIA, behavioral impact assessment. So we know the impact areas and then the impacts that are happening, or where this bad behavior would affect us as human beings. So, characteristics of environmental and social impacts. All right, this the list here, okay, maybe not exhaustive, but it gives us the environmental and social impacts, their characteristics. All right, so first, we will talk about character. It can be positive, it can be negative, then, well, it can have no effect at all. All right, so impact can be positive from a project, impact can be negative, both in the social sphere and then on the environment. And it can also have no effect. Then there's also type of effect, or a type of impact. It can impact the biophysical environment. It can impact the social or socio-cultural setting of the people. It can impact health, and also it can impact livelihoods or the economic aspect of life of people. So type is different, nature is different. All right, it can either be direct or indirect. I think I did mention the idea of indirect impact earlier on. All right, it can also be cumulative or synergistic. So we did mention cumulative earlier because cumulative is as a result of multiple projects, and synergistic, like I said, when you have three different projects tending to have the same impact, then that means there's a synergy between those three that are bringing that impact, as we say. All right. Then fourthly, we're looking at magnitude or severity. So it can be high impact, it can be moderate impact, it can be what? Low impact. All right. And fifthly, there's the idea of extent. All right. So we can that is to talk about the spatial covering of the impact. So it can be localized, that is within a local community. It can be nationwide, it can be regional, it can be global. So we talk about regional, it could be West African, it could be East African, like that. And globally, it can affect us in totality as human beings on Earth. So timing is also important. Okay, the timing of impact. Impacts can happen immediately or it can happen over time. So when we happening over time include things that we mention like bioaccumulation, okay? But immediate happening is what can be referred to as acute impact. Or long-term impacts are not acute, but rather sublethal. So they happen by accumulation. Then number 7 is duration. Okay, impacts can be temporary or they can be what? Permanent. So temporary, yes, it wears off after time, but permanent means it is not possible to change that impact at all. All right. Then number 8, uncertainty. Impacts, whether social or environmental, can have low likelihood of occurring or high probability of occurring. All right. And reversibility, yes, it can be reversible or irreversible. And this is where there's a link between reversibility and duration. So once it's temporary, yes, it's reversible. If it's permanent, it means it's irreversible. Then for significance, it can be unimportant or important. So if we recall, we didn't mention the fact that we have significant impact and then impacts that are of less significance. So this brings to 4 what we have discussed earlier on. So the World Bank on its own classifies all projects into 4 categories. We have the high risk, that is in red, or light, that is very bright red. We have substantial risk, which is in ox blood, as you can see. Moderate risk, that one is in yellow, and then low risk, it's in green. So I think if it's in the green, well, it's okay. If it's in the yellow, it's a cause for concern. If it's ox blood, then it raises some very serious necessity. But for high risk, it means there's needs to provide adequate management measures, as the case may be. So, how do we classify the risk? Or what do we use to determine the risk classification? So, yes, some people asked the questions earlier on, as in which projects need EIA, which one does not need EIA. So this is where we are coming to look at the real matter so that you'll be able to identify for yourself on the field now. When you are out there without us being there behind you, you'll be able to identify for yourself how to rate a project and determine its risk classification. So the most important thing is that you look at the type, you look at the location, you look at the sensitivity, and you look at the scale. Like I gave us an example then of a project, for instance, in Akwa Ibom, where I say there's a place that is being rehabilitated for heavy gully erosion. If you are going to cite a church there or even anything at all, building, you must have to consider the fact that, yes, that location is sensitive, all right? And then we also look at the massive nature of or the scale of the project you're about to put there. So that will determine whether there's heavy risk or there's a low risk, all right? So the nature and magnitude of all the potential environmental issues and impact also determines how you classify the risk. All right. Then if you are looking at funding and you are trying to get funding to execute a project that is going to affect the environment, the borrower's capacity and commitment to manage environmental and social risks and impacts also comes in. So if, for instance, you're approaching the World Bank now for funding, of course, we know that the World Bank is committed to environmental and social risk impact management. So coming there means that you should have an instrument that can help you to classify your risk so that you'll be able to tell them that, yes, we are having either high risk, substantial risk, moderate risk, or low risk, as the case may be. So currently, how do we approach sustainability of projects? Okay, we all know that projects can generate negative impacts to the surrounding. So like I said, it can be negative or positive, it can be neutral. But where we are most concerned about is the generation of negative impacts. Okay, so therefore, the main objectives of every EIA for a project should include the following. All right. One, it should be able to modify and improve project design. All right. Be able to modify and improve project design. Also need to ensure efficient resource use. So objectives of EIA, like I said, if we have resources that are to be used, and then there are alternative mitigation strategies, we look for the most cost-effective strategy, all right, so that we can now pick that. So that means the EIA effectively identifies which one is cheaper or which alternative is cheaper among the alternatives to be used. Then the EIA will also enhance social aspects. So the EIA will tell us if there's going to be an impact on livelihoods, if there's going to be an impact on ecosystem services, so that the people who are relying on the environment for their livelihood are not affected, and then the mitigation strategy for taking care of the impact on the social aspect of life. All right. So that means there needs to be a quantitative elucidation of the key impacts. Okay. So if we have quantitative impacts, then we will be able to know how to mitigate them. So we'll be able to tell what percentage level we can mitigate the impact. It also informs decision making and condition setting. All right. So once we are able to know, yes, these are the impacts, these are the mitigation strategies, then we can take decisions and then also be able to set targets so that we'll be able to achieve the set out goals. And at the end of the day, ultimately achieve the aim of the EIA itself. Then this in turn, once you have the EIA, this in turn will now lead you to avoid serious and irreversible damage to the environment. So there are types of damage that we said. We said it can be reversible or irreversible, okay, temporary or permanent. So once you have been able to identify which one it is, and you are looking at it going to be permanent or irreversible, okay, then you will look for you will now look for alternative projects or take it elsewhere where it will not cause irreversible damage to the environment. So ultimately, the goal now is to protect human health and safety, all put together. So the assessment cycle, all right, starts from the design. Okay, sorry, we first of all have to carry out the assessment, make the design, all right, then implement, we monitor, evaluate, and then assess again. So it's like it's a wheel, right? So beginning from the assessment phase, which is done prior to the execution of the project. So once you assess, you create the project design, then you begin to implement, you begin to monitor, and you begin to evaluate. And the evaluation will now lead you to further assessment again. Then you now rejig the design so that it now fits your current knowledge based on the current level of assessment. Then you implement, you monitor again, you evaluate again. So it's an ongoing process. And it's a process that creates room for improvement year by year or per time. All right. So there are some tools that can be used to operate the environmental and social impact assessments. All right. So, but the question is, why do we need to have the tools, or why do the tools matter? Okay. It's important because once you have the environmental and social impact assessment, and you have the findings on paper, okay, you can use the findings now to shape project design and execution. So exactly what I said earlier when we are looking at the assessment, when we're looking at the assessment cycle. Okay, so if this is not there, all right, all you have just succeeded in doing is put pen on paper, okay, without any practical effect on the in the execution of the project, and then how it affects the environment, okay, during project execution. So it is important because those that are giving out the money, okay, would be looking for real risk management actions. So it's not just a question of putting pen on paper or making some very beautiful speech or write-up, but they will be looking for real risk management actions. Okay. Then a quote there tells us that assessment without action is mere observation. So yes, there's a difference between observation and assessment. So when you assess something, it means you are willing to make improvement. But when you just observe, it's just a question of, okay, you acknowledge it, that is all. Nothing left to be done. So how do we classify the risk? There's high risk, so substantial risk, moderate risk, and low risk. So the tool that is used in each case is listed in the table before us. For high risk, we use environmental and social impact assessment. And that is why you hear us talking about it all the time here. Okay. Then for substantial risk, we use environmental and social impact assessment as well. Okay. For moderate risk, you require environmental and social management plan, ESMP. Okay. For low risk, you only do a screening. You don't need an ESIA, you don't need ESMP. Now, this may now open the eyes of those who were asking initially whether small companies, something like pure water or that, will require all this stuff. It's important to know the risk level of a project. So is the risk level of the project or the scale of the project that determines the risk. And then once you know the risk, then you'll be able to know which of the tools, okay, or documents to look out for. So for some cases, you may not necessarily need to be looking for an EIA. You may always just be looking for a screening, okay? But if there's moderate risk, you look for the ESMP. But high risk and substantial risk require that you have an ESIA. So for high risk projects, the ESIA is mandatory, okay? Because these projects have significant, irreversible, or large-scale impacts on the environment. Okay, so that means we require a full ESIA. This one includes things like baseline situations. Okay, you consult stakeholders, and then you also need to have detailed mitigation plans. Examples of such projects are listed there: dams, oil and gas, mining operations, and large highways that pass through biodiversity sensitive areas. Okay. Then the substantial risk projects. Yes, ESI is also mandatory. Okay, because their own impact may be significant, but not. But this is more site specific. Okay, and then it can easily be mitigated than the high risk projects. All right, but the thing is that the full ESIA is needed. Okay, but this is tailored towards the nature of the impact that is specific to that site. Okay, so they are done for medium scale industrial parks, wastewater treatment facilities, urban housing estates near ecologically sensitive. Now, if you look at this, what it means now is that, okay, the housing estates that we are talking about, they need to be near ecologically sensitive zones for us to be able to say, yes, you need an ESIA. But once they are not within there, okay, it may not be necessary or it may not form substantial risk, as the case may be. Then moderate risk. Yes, for this one, the impacts can be predicted, but the scale is usually limited and then it can be reversed. All right. So this requires an environmental and social management plan. All right. This one outlines mitigation. It outlines the monitoring strategy, and then it also outlines responsibility for stakeholders that are involved. Okay. The examples include construction of agro-processing centers, schools or health facilities in semi-urban areas, rehabilitation of existing roads, and rehabilitation of school buildings. So that this means that for all the rehabilitation of roads going on, okay, apart from the ones that have to do with heavy construction, what is actually needed is the environmental and social management plan, ESMP. Okay, so we look now at the low risk project. This one does not require any assessment. Okay, these projects have minimal or little or no adverse environmental and social impacts. All right, so this does not require either ESIA or ESMP, but it is mandatory that you should have some good environmental practice. The examples include routine maintenance works, installation of solar panels on existing rooftops, office renovations, and then establishment of ICT centers. Okay, so in all, this is how it happens. Okay, in the red zone, the risk is high or substantial. It requires ESIA. In the yellow zone, the risk is moderate. It requires ESMP. Then the green zone is low risk. There's no ESIA tool or environmental assessment tool that is required. Okay, so once you're able to rate the risk of environmental impact, you'll be able to know the tool that you can use. So, in all right, our takeaway from this lecture today that has to do with the assessment process for environment and includes the fact that the tool that we're going to use must match the project need. It's high risk, if it's substantial risk, ESIA. And also know that not all the projects require a full ESIA. All right, but be that as it may, integration into project design is very important. Okay, so you have to put into consideration the report from the ESIA, the ESMP, or even just normal for the low risk. Just have to put in the assessment that does not require you having an ESIA or an ESMP. So this is very critical. So the need to ensure that fully studied or fully understood in terms of their impact to social environment, the environment, the physical environment as a whole. What we have summed up here, and then what should be used in assessing these risks and impacts have been elucidated in this lecture. So thank you very much for listening. If there are questions and comments, they are all welcome now. Questions and comments are welcome. Class rep?
Yes, sir. I'm here, sir.
Okay.
Yes, question and comments, drop them in the chat.
Yes. We have about 9 minutes to go.
Okay, there's a question here from Brown Peace.
Okay.
Ms. Brown, please, sir.
Yes.
Can you throw more light on the examples or the types of projects you can see and call it a high risk, medium risk, or low risk?
Yeah, I think we have already, the lecture itself has shown us all that. Okay. So if we go back, these are high risk projects, dams. Okay. Is he there? Dams, large scale irrigation projects, oil and gas. Okay. Mining and large highways. This one's, so examples are all there, all right, in the lecture material. I believe you've not been provided the material, have you?
We have, sir.
Okay, good.
Dr. Ekoja sent it earlier yesterday.
Okay. It's okay.
It was shared on the group.
Yes. Okay.
I think we'll still share it for the benefit of those that are just coming on board now.
Okay. All right.
Some persons are still registering and joining the group.
Okay, no problem.
There is another question, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Is there, that is from Richard Yoka.
Okay.
Is there any project that doesn't possess risk or that does not require EIA?
Okay. I think, well, if you have followed the lecture, the answer is right there. There are some projects that are low risk. Those ones do not require EIA. Okay. So if we go through the lecture, you'll be able to see that the low risk projects, these ones have no adverse effect or have minimal effect, okay, on the environment. So all you just need to do is just ensure that you have good environmental practice. That's all. So I think there's one person raising his hand up.
Yes, there is one here that you will need to attend to, sir.
Okay.
One of the very first questions, sir, I thought it's a community question, but is there any legal way of addressing a land involuntarily taken from a landowner that is left stranded, bearing in mind that that is his source of livelihood inherited from his parents?
Okay. This is, I don't know how to put this. Okay. Like I said before, there are some questions that are not directly linked to environmental impact assessment or environmental and social impact assessment, but are now linked to, because this is just purely a legal issue. Okay. So when you say a land is involuntarily taken from a landowner, but you've not told us for what purpose. Okay. If it's for a developmental project, okay, and then we can address it. But like I said, land relocation of people from one place to the other takes into consideration their livelihoods as well, the social economic aspects. So that is supposed to be documented so that the movement is smooth and then not considered an affront, okay, to the cultural integrity of the people. So, but this question does not really border on ESIA. So I will not be able to tell you that this is what should be done. So, but if you have a case where there's land snatching, that one you go to the court of law. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Ruben is asking a question here.
Okay.
Mr. Ruben Mayangi is saying, thank you, Doc, for the lecture. Since
Okay.
EIA is carried out before the project,
Yes.
what can be done about projects which were carried out without EIA and which do have serious impact on the environment? What can be done?
Okay. So far, so good. There are, I think, between from the 90s or the early 2000s till now, I think the advocacy for environmental impact assessment increased substantially, so that there's a whole lot of information available as in EIA and then linked to the projects being carried out. So there is no recent project that is carried out without EIA, as the case may be. All right. So now we will not be able to say, okay, yes, this used to happen in the past, and then we have seen the adverse effects. Okay. So in cases where past mistakes have shown that there is some effect on the environment, all we now need to do is we need to carry out some a posteriori management measures. Okay, so all we just need to do is study the nature of the impact, study how it is unfolding. And once you're able to gather all the necessary scientific information, then you can spring into action to begin to implement one or two strategies that can be able to suppress the impact that you see. Okay, so, but for you to say blanket that current projects don't have EIA, I know that almost all of them have. Okay, so impact as a result of non carrying out of EIA is not something to worry about currently within this country. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Any other question? The chat box is also.
There are some
Okay,
people who have
there's
raised
one
their
here.
hands. Okay.
There is one here. If a project is first considered low impact and allowed to proceed without the full AI, can it later be required to carry out an environmental impact assessment if the project grows or changes? And how do regulators manage this process to make sure the environment is still properly protected?
Yeah, of course. If you're going to expand a project, you know that the initial EIA covers the scope that you initially presented. So, but if you are going to expand it, you are also now required to ensure that you do due diligence by providing EIA that now covers the addition you're about to carry out. So, first of all, you assess whether the addition is going to have high risk, or substantial risk, or moderate risk. Okay, so if it has any of these three, then you need to do either an ESIA or an ESMP. All right, that will now take care of the addition. Now, this now goes straight to the regulatory agencies, who will now swing into action to determine whether what you are saying is a fact or not. Then they will now be able to grant you the license to expand. Okay, so it's very
There's a
possible.
hand here. Chile Serumu Mabel.
Okay.
You can unmute yourself and speak, yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, Doc.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Cost Rep and my fellow colleagues. I want to really thank you for a wonderful lecture. You've done a good job on the EIA. I
Okay.
just wanted to add to what you said. There was a
Okay.
question and somebody asked on EIA that if peradventure a project didn't carry out an EIA and then it has a massive impact on the environment. It's like you said, it's very difficult for any project to happen now without an EIA. But there are still people
Yes.
that can be very, very funny. We are Nigerians. They have a
Yes.
way of when they start the process before the whole process is complete. They start the developmental project already, and then sometimes their EIAs are not ready. So in a case like that,
Yes.
if that the EIA or they skip that part, the project comes into full, the project is carried to completion. If a case like that happens, and I work with Nestra, so I'm talking from that dimension. We make sure that the company carries out what we call an environmental audit report.
Okay.
Because since you've not carried an EIA, and then the impact on the facility or the company is much, we expect that you should be able to mitigate it. So there's a fine that you pay, because if you ask for your EIA statement and you don't have it, then there's a court injunction that you will go and pay a fine, as the court will, whatever the court puts to that injunction, and then you come back and make sure that you get a consultant that carries out an environmental audit report. This report now will try to look at what you have done from the beginning of the project, and as your processes are going by, what needs to be mitigated. Like you do an account audit. So they check every aspect of the environment. And this audit also has an EMP inside, of which we can also use to now monitor the environment as after you carried out your EIA. So that is what is done. If peradventure you are able to escape that or manipulate your way through it, except we do not come in contact with that. But if we do, that is the next step you will have to take. I hope I've answered that question.
Yeah.
Today, added much to what you said.
Yes. That's correct.
Thank you very much, sir.
Very much. Yes. Thank you. So Ose, Animan, and then Japa, Wubis, they are also with their hands up.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you get them so that we now close the class?
Okay, Ose, over to you, sir. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, good afternoon, Doc. Thank you for the lecture.
Good afternoon.
I want to comment a little on the question asked by Kefas Emmanuel concerning land that is taken from somebody. If it's a bank-funded project, they carry out what is called resettlement action plan. And within the resettlement action plan, you document every land that is to be taken, and then you compensate fully. The bank expects that you leave somebody better than you met them. So if you are taking land from somebody, you should compensate the person at the current value of the land, or even more than the current value of the land.
Okay.
And then, so the bank expectation is you leave the person better than you met them. And for bank-funded project, you cannot escape this process. But for other projects where this may be escaped, the person has the cost to go to. First of all, you can report to NESRE or any of the regulatory agencies, the Federal Ministry of Environment, and then they can follow up with the proponent or the person that is carrying out the project. And in cases where it's government project that most of the time the handlers are not willing to follow due process, you can go to court.
Yes.
If due process is not followed, you can go to court and then you have your case addressed. Thank you, sir.
Okay. You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Yes, very powerful submission. Evans, Mr. Evans. Unmute yourself and speak, sir.
Hello. Good
Okay.
afternoon, Paul.
Hi. Yes, good afternoon.
Okay. Thank you for the lectures. My question is regarding the EIA.
Okay.
I believe this is a professional settings, and we're getting enlightenment regarding the EIA. But I'm talking in regards to like the key stakeholders, especially
Yes.
people in the villages, the remote areas, are not opportune to get some of this enlightenment. I think the regulatory bodies, especially the NESRA and Federal Ministry of Environment, I think they need to do more advocacy, awareness regarding the EIA.
Okay.
That's my submission.
It's okay. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for that submission. George,
If you are done, you just drop your hands. So we just have 2 people left. Okuma.
George Okuma.
Yes.
No, one. George
Yeah,
Okuma,
okay,
you can
one.
unmute yourself. George Okuma, unmute yourself, sir. I think he's not there.
All right.
Yes, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. I think we are.
Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Hello, sir.
George, you can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Please, I want to use this meeting and talk to Mrs. Serum Chile concerning the pure biotech, what is happening at pure biotech. The whole of that environment, I don't know what NESRA is doing about it. As we are talking about EIA, so I just want to comment about that. Maybe I'm reporting this thing to them also. Thank you very much. I don't know whether they have EIA or I don't know.
That matter is political too. Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Mabel, I want to say something, please. Okay, you can say. Have your say, ma.
Please, the person who spoke, Pure Biotech, of course, it's a big company. Like Doc rightly said, it is impossible for them to continue or operate without an EIA. Like he said, it's attitudinal change. There are certain things that even if people, you enforce, of course, enforcing comes with monitoring. But as the class rep said rightly, there are certain things that are not things we discuss in class like this. Because number one, they are official things. But I want to tell you that they have an EIA. You understand? And they also have an ETP. So if you say the situation there is bad, I think over time we monitor them. I will not want to comment on that, but I want you to know that they do have an EIA. Thank you.
Before now, I used to carry placard. Maybe one day we should carry placard and block that place now.
Thank you very much, Mabel. That is very professional. Okay, so Sunday Asemaka is the last person.
Okay.
Can we hear him? So after
Yeah,
this,
that's my
normal.
You have a history of carrying placard.
You can off your mic, sir. Oh, sorry, on your mic, sorry.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon.
All right, sir. Thank you for the lecture.
You're welcome.
And the enlightenment. You enlightened us very well. Sir, I want to ask, in case when you carrying out, when this supposing that a company want to establish or they want to establish something in a locality or in an area, and the issue of Nigeria factor now maybe a traditional rulers correct money from EIA or correct money that the EIA should not be carried on. In that case, are we going to invite the legal practitioner or what exactly are we going to do to solve the situation?
Okay, yeah, your question is a bit, let's say it's a bit off the mark, because to me, the people who should be concerned about EIA not being carried out should be the people who are implementing the project, not the community where the project is coming in. So for traditional rulers to collect money and then say that there should be no EIA, it's like somebody firing a gun and shooting himself on the leg and then crying foul. Okay?
Okay.
I hope I'm making sense.
Sorry, excuse me, sir.
Yes.
In fact, I'm coming in the respect of once somebody asks a question in the morning, that
Okay.
can you transfer? I guess in the case of Jos or Kaduna, he said when he visit the site, the organization told him that they are using the AIA they used in another local government and transferred it to the other local government. So in this case, what I'm trying to say is, supposing that we visited the place and they told you that the stakeholder, the critical stakeholders, maybe for example, a traditional rulers or people that are involved, collected the money that are supposed to do that and refused not to do it, and just allow the program to continue without considering the negative impact on the host community. In that case, what are we going to do?
Okay. Yeah, I think I understand. Let me just say something here. I think I'm trying to understand what is happening now. So what you're trying to say is that the project is about to be executed. There is need for an EIA, but now the community leaders are asking for something from the project implementers. Then instead of the project implementers to source the money from elsewhere, they will just carry the money that is spent for EIA and give it to them.
That is what I'm
So
saying.
that means EIA is not going to be done. Okay? Because they see that as the easiest way out. Okay?
Yes.
So in that sense, it's still the same thing I'm talking about. They have carried their gun and shot themselves on the leg. Okay? And at the end, they are the ones who will cry foul. But through the help of the people who are supposed to execute the project. But again, if it is a World Bank sponsored project or a donor project, there must be an EIA. It is only happening, this can only happen where it is state-funded project and not a donor-funded project. Please, you take note of that. Okay? If it's a donor-funded project, there must be an EIA. So, Madam Mabel, I don't know whether you have something to add.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah, Madam
You
Mabel,
said,
okay.
sir?
Yes, I don't know if you have something to add to this.
Hello?
Do you have something to add to what I said?
No. Okay, yes.
All right. Please
okay. Well, I think what Doc said is correct. I think I commented on that on the last specific. So there's no way that someone will move EIA from even the neighboring local government and use it. Even if it's a mast, that MTN mast is in different locations, they have to make carry out EIA for each site. Because what is in a logo might not be what is in TACA. So, and the parameters, they are different. So I agree with perfectly with what Doc said. And for most funded projects that have donors, like he said, it is impossible for that. What we actually advise is that the youth ask questions and get involved. There's what we call community agreement. They have to come together, ask questions, get to know what is happening. Because when you don't ask questions, then the chiefs will take over. And then do what they need. That it's not with donors that we ask the right questions, then problems begin to arise. So if hello,
that's true.
Hello.
That's true.
We're hearing you.
Can you hear me?
We are hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we are hearing you.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We are with you, madam.
Okay, so most of the time we advise that anywhere these projects are going to be carried out, any major project, the communities get involved. Okay, the communities get involved. you ask questions. It is not trying to create problem, but you ask the right questions. You try to find out information, and so that whatever is going to be carried out in your communities will be able to profit you as a community, and then the risk could be reduced. Because there are some projects that are carried out and they leave most of those communities in a very bad shape. Like Doc was saying, like the mining projects, if not properly handled, most facilities and communities are left in very bad shapes. So I will just add to that if it's like he said, if it's a government-based or it's one that doesn't have donors, maybe an individual is carrying out, then you have to ask questions. If your chiefs get involved, if you don't get involved, they will do what they want to do, and then the community will, because legal battles begins to come up. When we go in there, we'll have to ask questions, and then, okay, what is the agreement that was on ground before this project started? What was agreed on? And most times, there's no document to hold on to.
That's correct. That's correct.
So it is something that go to the necessary regulatory bodies and ask questions, especially when it has to do with an environmental issue. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Dr. Kufri, I think we said that the last
Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, thank you, sir. I really enjoyed the lecture. I just want to add up there because these issues, like the last person mentioned about maybe community stakeholders collaborating with the public, those things happen. I am the immediate past vice chairman of Nigeria Environmental Society in my state, and I have been involved in some of these projects. I think what the community should always do is to also involve people who are professionals. Like we have Nigeria Environmental Society, who also understand, what it takes to carry out EIA. Because as a community person, if you don't have an idea, you may not be able to ask a meaningful question. So I will always advise the community should always engage either professional bodies, or they can even engage a consultant to defend and ask questions, because somebody that is knowledgeable will know exactly what to ask. They will also even review the document. Even when they do display, they do stakeholders presentation. At times, a lot of committee will come, they will be the proponent will just do the presentation and they don't understand anything. At the end of the day, they will still go empty, and those problems will still be there. So I think it's important that communities should always look for either a consultant, professionals, or they can go to the professional bodies like the Environmental Society, Environmental Managers of Nigeria, and even Institute of Safety Professionals of Nigeria, and maybe seek for help from them. But those things really happen. Like I know there's one oil company, they do a lot of oil drilling in my state, and most of those drilling sites they don't have EIA. I've been involved in two. They don't have. So those things still happen. But the community, at times, the chiefs collaborate ignorantly, but they will just confine money, give to the chiefs. Once they collect money, the company will just do whatever they like. And because they don't understand the implication of it, and the people will leave the problem behind. So I just want to advise, like that person that has, always look, community should go for professionals, look for professionals, let them stand on behalf of, let them speak on behalf of the community, so that they will ensure that the right things are being done. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Thank you very much. So, effectively, we have come to the end of the lecture for today. So I want to thank every member of the class, those that have contributed immensely, those that have asked questions, those that have spent their time to listen. It has been a pleasure. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, class rep.
Go to the reaction and send Dr. some plenty heart to send him love.
Thank you so much.
You, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Have a blessed
Thank
day
you, sir.
See you tomorrow.
Very powerful enlightenment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Tomorrow,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much,
be
sir.
taking
We
over
are grateful
tomorrow.
having you. Thank you.
Will take over tomorrow. Yes.
But you can still come in and greet us now.
Of course.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right.
So much, sir.
Thank you. Well done.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.